Yawaitaza, I'm counselor of the people. So when I'm speaking in Hebrew, I want to make it clear to you that our trials and tribulations was beyond massive. Now your past is one teach us to be living.
Mr. Falk, James Sandon.
Hey.
Anger and shock spread through the city and triggered riots throughout South Central Los Angeles.
The city is under a state of emergency.
The governor has okayed the National Guard.
This is nonsense, and they ought to stop it.
No justice, no peace.
If you could be seen. 149 would like to be dispatched as a group.
This your wet time. Yawaitaza, I'm Council of the People, coming with another episode of Phone Tap. So first and foremost, I just want to say all praise is due to the Most High by Shema Mashiach, who is Jesus Christ, because right now we're celebrating Purim, and it is beautiful, people. It really is. My wife did a very good job decorating the place. People came, the children had fun, and we had presents for the children. And we're going to go out and feed the homeless, as the scriptures say, how we're supposed to celebrate Purim. So I just want to say a sharp Purim for all of the brothers and sisters, whether you're in the camp or not, who's trying to rehearse the righteous acts and celebrate Purim. I have a theory. That there was a Messiah named Yahushua Mashiach that walked the earth one day and gave some prophecies. And he prophesied a few things, that nation shall be against nation. Well, when you read the Bible, when you look up the word nation, what is the word nation? Nation is another way of identifying a race. So that means in the last days there's going to be what? Race wars. Like there's a movie called The Purge. What is The Purge? And what The Purge is pretty much the government decided to create a day where all citizens of their country could just purge out all of their sins by having it legalized for the amount of 12 hours of lawlessness, where you could do anything you want, including murder and rape. And some of y'all think in your minds, that's just a movie. But in the movie, they show how if ever such thing as the purge was to happen, aka Mystery Night, I don't know. If ever such thing like the purge was to happen, one of the first things that would happen is white supremacists would be after you. Because the people who have money and the people who have power and the people who have authority will use those powers against the helpless. In this society, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, you are the helpless because you don't even have another government, another country, another far-off land that has your back, while all the other nations do. Yes, these acts of terrorism have been happening to so-called black people. Recently, people like James Byrd being dragged around by a pickup truck to his body disintegrating into different pieces. All right? People being hung on trees in Tennessee. So even in today's time, they already kind of legalize it where people could commit acts of terror to black people, but they just haven't put it out as blatant as the movie, where in the movie you see in part 2 where they actually began to target the inner city and the government began being involved in the purge itself. And then we think that these things could never happen, but it did happen in real life. It happened during the time of Esther. So we're about to get into a little bit of knowledge of who is who, of what race enslaved the Israelites during the time of Esther, to put a picture and a face and to see how a whole nation of people was being targeted through a purge day. Without further delay, let's get into it. We're going to look up the name Elam. Now, this is from out of the Illustrated Columbia Encyclopedia, and it reads, Elam, ancient country of Asia, north of the Persian Gulf. North of the Persian Gulf. So we know as a place. The place Elam was near what? The Persian Gulf. What people inhabited Persia? Persians. And east of the Tigris. Now in West Iran. So now the people that who inhabit Iran today are most likely the descendants of the ancient Persian Empire, who are what? Elamites. And if you notice, they look very similar to Pakistanians. And Pakistanians look very similar to people in India. And people in India look very similar to the ancient Persians. A civilization seems to have been established there very early, probably in the late 4th millennium BC, the capital of Susa, and the country is sometimes called Susanna. Now, you may not know what the ancient Persians look like, so I'm going to give you a visual of what the ancient Persians look like. They actually have images of themselves, because their people made images of themselves to display to the world what they look like. And these tablets are now in history. So you have Buckingham Palace. All right, you even have the people that was brought over from India as indentured servants to Jamaica, known as what? Trinidadians. And if you look at all of them, they all resemble features of this ancient Persian picture. Look at this depiction right here. These are how the Persians depicted themselves. Who are the ancient Elamites according to the Bible? The book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 21 and 22. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashar, and Arxphad. The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashar. The children of Shem, Elam. So Elam is a Shemite, a so-called Semite. All right. Elam is related to the children of Israel because the children of Israel are Shemites. Continue with our lesson. It's just a quick breakdown of the history of the Persian Empire, who are the Elamites according to the Bible. We're going to read Ezra chapter 2 verse 1. It says, "Now these are the children of the province that went up out of the captivity of those which have been carried away from Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon." So the Persians, the Elamites, they were the ones who conquered the Babylonians, who actually had us into captivity. And then the Persians inherited us as slaves after conquering the Babylonians. Let's find out who were some of these servants that was being taken out of the Babylonian captivity and being brought into the Persian captivity. Verse 2. "Which came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Reliah, Mordecai." We know Zerubbabel. We know Nehemiah, who's responsible for both of them trying to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem after the King Cyrus granted us permission to go back to our homeland. All history references, they'll show you and tell you that King Cyrus was the king who allowed the Israelites to go back to their homeland after their captivity in Babylon. We're going to go to the book of Daniel, chapter 6, and we're going to read from verse 1 to 10. Daniel, chapter 6, verse 1 to 10. "It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom." So Darius also is a known figure in history. And he was what? The king of Persia. And he had to set up people that was going to be over different provinces. Let's see who was one of the people that he set up. "And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the prince might give accounts of them, and the king shall have no damage." So there was 3 main people that he exalted, and the person that he put over all 3 was Daniel the prophet. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. So Daniel was much more preferred than all of the other presidents that was being exalted in this Persian Empire under King Darius. Okay? Verse 5. "Then said these men, Ye shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God." So now they tried to find something wrong with Daniel, but they couldn't find anything wrong with Daniel. So what did? They targeted the faith that Daniel was in. The last thing that they're going to deal with is your faith system, because then they're going to try to link you to other radical groups and what other people are saying and what other people are doing, and then they're going to say, this is all your faith is about. He's a radical. This is all your faith is about. And a lot of the things that we're saying is in defense of racism and evil things that's being done to us right now as a people, as I explained earlier today. But because we speak out against it and because we're so bold, we're looked at as radical. This is what happened with Daniel. And it reads on. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princesses, the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute, to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So now King Darius actually signed a decree that was going to be not beneficial towards the Jews, because we are commanded not to worship any gods and follow our laws. But these people decided to come together and make a law that was purposely going to go against our law to cause the king and the empire of Persia to do us harm. Verse 9. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his window being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he knelt upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetimes. So the same thing that they did to Daniel is the same thing that they try to do to us today. The same thing that happened in Esther's time. They tried to create a law or a decree to try to wipe us out as a people. Let's deal with some more history dealing with the Persians. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1 through 5, and it reads, About that time, King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say that Elamias in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches. So there was a city in the kingdom of Persia called what? Elamias. Elamias in the what? In the land of Persia. Showing you the connection between the Elamites and the Persians. Verse 2. And that there was in it a very rich temple, wherein were coverings of gold and breastplates, the shields which Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there. So the Greeks were the ones who conquered the Persians after the Persians conquered the Babylonians. And each one of these captivities, they have images of Israelites under their captivity as servants, slaves, and so forth and so on. All right. And they all show us as a people of color. And this also show you that the Persian kingdom was a great empire, an empire with a lot of riches. So when you see a lot of these so-called East Indians today, you be thinking that they're poor and they may not have a lot of money, but they are wealthy. They do have a generational wealth passed down. Verse 35, moreover, they divided the beast among the armies, and for every elephant they appointed 1,000 men, armed with coats of mail and with helmets of brass on their heads. And besides this, for every beast were ordained 500 horsemen of the best. The Persians, they used to fight with these gigantic elephants. All right, and then they would have a Persian Indian on top of the elephant controlling the elephant, and they would surround the elephant with men from the army and horsemen from the army to make sure that you couldn't get to the elephant itself. Verse 36. These were ready at every occasion, wheresoever the beast was, and wheresoever the beast went, they went also. Neither departed they from him. And upon the beast were there strong towers of wood. So on top of the elephants, they had like a little strong tower of wood. This was like an ancient army tank back then, which covered every one of them, and were girt fast unto them with the device. There were also upon every one 32 strong men that fought upon them, beside the Indian that ruled him. Now the him is the beast. The beast is the elephant. The Indian was the Persian. And here you have a scripture with the Persians being called what? Indians, like East Indians, who ruled over the elephant. Why? Because when the Greeks conquered the Persians, as great as the Persian Empire was, they called the Persians savages. That's what the word Indian meant, savages. So let's see how large the Persian Empire was. The book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 127 provinces. That in those days, when the kings of Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace. Here we're reading in the book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1, where it calls their empire, it says their empire is reigned from India, all right, where we get the East Indians from, the Trinidadians from, to Ethiopia, showing you that the Elamites are the ancient Persians. Go to the book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. It says, after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advance him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So the same way Joseph was second in command in Egypt, the same way how we read how one of the kings of Persia, Darius, has set up Danius to be second in command. You also had another king, a King Arxes. This king also had a second in command. His second in command was somebody of the son of Hammedatha, Agagite. Who are the Agagites? Because who is this wicked dude Haman that was able to convince the Persian Empire to commit an act of purge against the Hebrew Israelites? Well, let's find out. We're going to go to the book of Numbers, chapter 24, verse 7, to find out what an Agagite is. The book of Numbers, chapter 24, verse 7, and it reads, he shall pour the water out of the buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. So Agag was a famous king in Esau's people, who were the Edomites. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 7. And Saul smote the Amalekites of Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. So you have the Amalekites who were being killed by King Saul. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. So Agag, the king of the Amalekites, Agag, the Agagites, okay, during the time of King Solomon, that was an Edomite tribe. Let's find out who are the Amalekites. We're going to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 36, verse 9. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons. We're going to go down to verse 12. And Teman was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son. And she bare Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So the Amalekites, Amalek, was a tribe out of the Edomites. And Agag is the family of the Agagites. So Haman was an Agagite. And he had a hatred, a perpetual hatred towards the children of Israel. How do we know this? Let's read how he convinced, or why he convinced the Persians to commit the act of purge against the Israelites. Pick up in the book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advance him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gates bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had commanded concerning him, but Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. So everybody had to give reverence to the second in command, Edomite. But this type of reverence that was commanded to give was more like a worshiping type of reverence. And Mordecai, being a Jew, refused to do that. Verse 3. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai matters would stand. For he told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. So this Edomite, this so-called white man, because that's who the Edomites are today. This Edomite was mad that Mordecai did not give reverence and worshiped him. But it's against our faith to worship a man. We don't worship men. We only worship the Most High. So his matter was that he was a Jew. We're going to continue reading. And he thought to scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom, and Artaxerxes even the people of Mordecai. So throughout the kingdom of Artaxerxes, he wanted to kill the Jews that were scattered abroad. He wanted to kill all of the Israelites that was under King Artaxerxes' rule in his empire. He wanted to kill all of us. All right? And the scripture tell you what was written aforetime was written for our learning, and what was done shall be done. So the hate that the so-called white man had for us back then is the same hate that he had for us during the time of slavery, the same hate that he had for us during the time of the Jim Crow era, the same hate that he has for us still to this day. Let's read on. Going to skip down to verse 8. And Haman said unto the king Artaxerxes, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not the king's profit to suffer them. And that's a lie, because we always obeyed the laws of the land as long as it didn't cause us to go against the Most High commandments. And still to this day, that's how we practice. Like, there haven't been one Hebrew Israelite, right, or at least not one group of Hebrew Israelites that acted as one organization that committed an act of terrorism against another nation. But they still put us on the same level of the so-called KKK. So we're going to read on. Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasury. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. The Jews' enemy. That's what it called this Agagite, this Edomite, Haman. So the so-called white man, what did he do? He got the king to sign an ordinance the same way how Darius was signing an ordinance against our people, the same way how the Greeks created ordinances against our people to try to destroy us as a nation. This is very similar to the movie Purge, because when you look at the movie The Purge, it was a government ordinance to be able to have the day of lawlessness and go out and commit acts of terror against one another.
Release the beast and purge in our American streets. Your new founding fathers encourage your participation.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Who got the power and the ones who got the guns, because all of these gun laws that they want to change because of these recent school shootings, these are not to stop them from getting guns. These are to stop us from getting guns, because they defend their constitutional right to bear arms. But the so-called black man doesn't have no rights in this system. So these ordinances that they made in the past, they're going to make ordinances like this again. They're going to make ordinances to issue out the mark of the beast. We know that eventually the spirit was placed upon the brother Mordecai, which is the reason why this day, this feast day, is also called Mordecai's Day. And his little cousin Hadassah, whose name was Esther, changed to Esther. The Most High put the spirit on him to save our whole nation. How? Through the marriage that Esther had with King Arxes at the time. So this was a real Persian king that Esther was married to, and she had to be his sister because she had to hide her nationality from him. So check this out. The book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 10, it says, Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she could not show it. So Mordecai used wisdom, asked the sister to hide her nationality. Now, how was she going to hide amongst a bunch of East Indians and dark-skinned Persian people if she was a white Jewish woman? She wouldn't have been able to. And then to prove even more, she reveals her nationality in chapter 7, Esther chapter 7, verse 1. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? Now check this out, verse 3. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. See, he signed the petition not even realizing that she was a Jew. And he signed this regulation to kill all Jews. That's how you know he didn't even know she was a Jew. Right? So they couldn't have been amongst a bunch of white people. And it reads on, for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain. And
Yawaitaza, council of the people. And we out here celebrating Purim, so Purim for all my people out there celebrating Purim. As you know, according to the scriptures, you actually supposed to be feeding the homeless and giving gifts to one another on Purim. But I like to have respect for the homeless. I don't like filming people getting food and things like that, because at the end of the day, that's their situation, you know. But I do want to read a couple of scriptures to encourage more brothers and sisters to follow these laws, statutes, and commandments, follow Purim as it's supposed to be written. So I want to read this real quick in the book of Esther on why we choose to do what we do during this time. All right, and here it is, the book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 16. But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on their prey. So the word Purim, the word Pur in Hebrew, is pretty much talking about lots. And the reason why the name Purim, we have this name for the feast day, is because the heathens round about us in the Persian Empire had planned to murder us, kill us, and then take our lots, take our Pur, take our possessions. All right? And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters to all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Xerxes, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, and that's the 12th day. So you got the 14th day and the 15th day of the 12th month of the year that we keep this. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them for sorrow, now to joy, and from mourning to the good day, that they should make them days feasting and joying, and sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. I'm gonna read this part again. It says, and gifts to the poor. So now if you pan the camera that way right there, all right, this is the food or the gifts that we're out here to give to the poor, you know. So once more again, I'm not out here to film the poor and try to show the whole world that I'm righteous or what I'm doing, all of that stuff, because none of that stuff really matters. This ain't about me. This is the Most High feast day. I'm out here to encourage more brothers and sisters to do the righteous acts of the Lord, all right? Because oftentimes we know that the Most High like to punish people, put them into poverty and things like that for their wickedness and their sins. But the scripture also say that the Most High sent it to rain on the just and the unjust. So what are we out here? We out here doing the work of the Most High, letting it rain on the just and the unjust. So in saying that, a sharp pariyam to all my brothers and sisters. Keep these 2 days with joyfulness and gladness of heart. Shalom. Because a lot of us, we use terminologies like, oh, I'm in the belly of the beast. You don't even know where that phrase come from. The belly of the beast. You don't even know what it means to be in the belly of the beast.
Satan when you think that the true Jews do not exist. That he deletes everything that we know of about the Bible. But the Israelites are human beings who went to prophecy, and prophecy is proven through the living text.
Hey yo, we running out of time. When Christ come back, could we really say we ready for that? Hey yo, we running out of time.
We give them all of our praise, cause we really living in the last days.
Hey yo, we running out of time. When Christ come back, could we really say we ready for that? Hey yo, we running out of time.
We give them all of our praise, cause we really living in the last days.